everyone, it's Frida and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made this Cloisonne Enamel bracelet. I've learned Cloisonne enameling 20 something years ago in an art school in Europe. Let's get to the project. It's going to be a rectangular bracelet, so I cut out the shape of it with my shear. My idea is that I'm going to fold up the sides of the rectangle, and this way I'm going to create a nice frame for my design. First I measured and scored the lines where the folds are going to be. Now I cut out the corners so I can fold the sides up. Now I grabbed my steel block and this sharp cutting tool which my husband made for me. With the help of a hammer, I cut the material partially along the scored lines. Using the edge of the steel block and the hammer, I folded up the sides. I could do two sides pretty easily, the other two sides were a little bit more challenging. You can see that the material folds pretty easily along these partially cut lines. That's because, of course, I nailed the piece before. When the sides were nicely folded, I evened out the back with my hammer. I wanted to solder the corners together, so I prepared the piece for soldering with applying flux and adding little chips of silver solder. I'm warming the piece up from underneath until the solder flows. I put it in pickle to remove the oxides, and until it was in the pickle I cut off a copper strip from a copper sheet. I'm making two brackets which I'm going to attach to the back of the copper piece I made. This way I can put a leather strip through the bracket so it becomes a bracelet. I soldered the pieces together. I'm using a type of silver solder which can withstand the high temperatures of enameling. I'm heating it again evenly from underneath until the solder flows. I pickled the piece and I grabbed my doming block. I curved the bracelet so it follows the shape of the wrist. The metalwork part of the project was pretty much done, and the next step was to fold the cloisonne wires. Cloisonne wires are flat wires and I made them previously in my rolling mill. I'm folding them with pliers and a tweezer to match my design. I put them on a sticky tape because I really don't want to lose these delicate wires after I put so much work in them. These wires are going to create the cells where the enamel is going to go, and they're going to separate the colors. When I finished the wire work, the day was pretty much gone. I went outside and I checked on these babies. Looking at this footage with these innocent little birds on it makes me really sad, because by the time I'm recording this voiceover, they got eaten by a gopher snake. Nature is brutal out here, guys. These little curveball babies have only 10% survival rate if I remember correctly. I couldn't spend too much time outside because look at that, guys, that cloud is a dust storm coming. The next morning I switched on my kiln and I started the enamel work on my project. First I applied counter enamel on the back. I wanted to apply enamel under the brackets too, so I applied it wet with a paintbrush. When it dried, I sifted the leftover surface. I also cleaned off the enamel from the brackets. I fired it in my kiln off camera, and I also pickled it before applying the clear fuse on the front. After sifting it, I fired it again off camera. The next step was placing the cloisonne wires on the surface of the bracelet. I'm using a tweezer here, and I'm also using glue to secure the wires on the surface of the bracelet until the next firing. After I put all the wires in place, I'm going to fire the piece so the base coat melts and the wires going to get stuck in it, so they're not going to move around anymore. That's what I did. It was time to choose the colors. They already all washed, so I just rinsed them with distilled water. I started to apply the enamel in between the cells with the help of a paintbrush and a little scraper. My design is inspired by ancient Egyptian art. Ancient Egyptians were people who produced lots of grains as a staple food crop, so they had lots of rodents as well. The cat became a very important pet to help them to reduce the rodent population. The presence of the cats ensured that they had enough grain until the next harvest. They were so important that the penalties for injuring or killing a cat were severe. They appeared on lots of paintings, and they also made lots of sculptures about them. If you watched this video this far, maybe you're interested in learning cloisonne enameling yourself. If you're interested in learning this beautiful technique, I have 2 courses as of now up on Patreon. Both courses are beginner friendly and you can follow me step by step. I walk you through the process, and by the end of these courses you're going to end up with a beautiful Cloisonne enamel piece, and you're going to learn a lot about this beautiful technique. I'm going to leave the links in the description. When I was done applying the colors, I waited the enamel to dry and I took a break and I went outside and I made a tea. Look at the sky, it's so pretty. The monsoon definitely arrived. It's raining every day now and it's making the sky look magical. I left the tea to steep and I went for a little hike with Lucky. When we came back, the bracelet was already dry, so I fired it in my kiln on 1400 Fahrenheit for 2 minutes. Oxides developed on the wires, so I put it in pickle. Until it was in the pickle, I went outside and I poured myself a cup of tea. I get a compliment here and there on my tea kettle, and honestly guys, I don't know where is it from. It was a gift from a friend. I sat there for a moment enjoying the cooler weather and the scenery before I came in. I removed the piece from the pickle, I rinsed it with distilled water, and I started to apply the second layer of vitreous enamel. We need to do that because enamel shrinks in the kiln. I don't know guys if you're aware that I have an online store. Please check it out, it would mean a lot to me. Let's get back to the project. I usually apply 3 layers of enamel, firing it in between. I did the 3rd layer off camera. Until you watch me work, let's answer a question I got recently on one of my videos. The question says, if you want to solder the pieces onto another piece, would it be reactive with the enamel? You don't need to solder the wires on the surface of the copper if you meant that. In this case, for example, I soldered the corners, so the solder goes on the surface. And yes, most solders can react with enamel, particularly if the solder contains zinc. That's why I use eutectic silver solder. It's a pure alloy of silver and copper. It does not contain zinc, therefore it's not gonna be reactive with the enamel. I hope it answered your question. When I finished with all 3 layers and I finished firing them, only one step remained of this process, and that was the sanding. I'm using diamond pads and I'm sanding it underwater to prevent creating a lot of dust. Guys, if you would like to see more enameling videos from me, please check out this playlist. We need to sand the piece to make the surface smooth and to remove the enamel from the wires. Enamel loses its shine during the sanding, so I fired it again to get the shine back. After that I polished up the surfaces and it was done. This is how it turned out and I really love it. Let me know guys what you think. If you like my work and my videos, please consider supporting me on Patreon or visit my online shop. The links are going to be in the description. You can also show your support by subscribing to my channel, liking, sharing my videos and also commenting on them. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!